If you're upper class, you're allowed to be more authentic at work, especially if you're white. Other classes aren't. And that's what gets me about the whole authenticity conversation. And I agree that you're being narcissistic if you expect everyone to cater to every little bit of you. And I think how tailored our algorithms are post and during 2 years of the world being online so much during COVID does have people coming out of that expecting everything to be catered to them. And that's why we have bean supers and shit in comments just being like, what do you mean? It's not exactly about me. It's also like we can't talk about that without also talking about that there is one very narrow group who that is how work is set up. And it is impacting organizational and individual performance. I'm going to do a longer YouTube on this in a few weeks because I just read a book by an author whose first book I really loved and heavily promoted, but this book was terrible. I mean, from a writing perspective and from making an argument, it was very disappointing because this person is also an organizational psychologist like I am. Because it's such a small field, for all the things I don't hold back on here, like critiquing capitalism, toxic business bosses, not being anti-DEI, all those things. But I'm like, I hate to like criticize in such a small field. I know it's dangerous. And with, an author who has like maybe 2 books, and I know how much work goes into a book, but I read this like 50% of the way through the book. I was like, this feels like AI wrote this because it's just so repetitive. And his first book wasn't like that. Maybe he changed ghostwriters. I don't know. But like, he also has a Ph.D. So I'm like, I know you know how to write because you had to do like dissertation, thesis, likely other publication. Like, but the argument itself was also such bullshit. It was about not being yourself. And it had some good points, especially in the beginning. If you only are yourself and you expect everyone to accept you exactly as you are, that doesn't even happen in personal relationships. Like in a romantic relationship, I mean, yeah, if you are still an asshole to someone, even if it's authentically who you are, then you're probably not going to stay in that relationship or it could become abusive. The author also makes good points about dark triad leaders are being authentically themselves. They bamboozle people in the beginning by not being themselves, not being authentic, to move up the career ladder. And then surprise, once they had enough power, they were like, yeah, fuck y'all. This happens politically and in business. But what I found frustrating about this was that in his first book, which I liked a lot, he talked about how the systems and organizations that reward dark triad traits are what allow for this, and that the best way to move forward is to focus on actual job performance and not just office politics and charisma and soft skills. Or not really, soft skills are skills, but really charisma and ass kissing. And so many researches the unwritten rules and its impact on business and people. My research aligns with that statement. And he gives several examples from research and business on how psychopaths destroy organizations. We know this. That is not a unique finding to his book, but it was really well written and said. And this book was written pre-pandemic. And then this second book on authenticity just missed. It just didn't have a clear thought out argument of like, yes, there are always adjustments to make. And he's talked about how narcissistic and childish it is to expect everyone to cater to you. But what is never discussed is what he said in his first book, that certain things are rewarded and they're a problem. And of course, his work doesn't touch on like what mine does about class culture clashes. But what I can tell you is there is one type that is rewarded at work. There is one group of people who gets to be authentic. And it's rich white men who are also able-bodied and neurotypical. And I'm sure you could go down, who are also like, heterosexual, and especially if they're tall. Oh my God, tall men get away with murder. And I think that's the piece that's missing from the authenticity conversation that I want to keep happening of like, I tell people all the time, because of course I get challenged all the time, as I should, on, are you telling people just to conform? There's business benefits to people being themselves, etc. Of course. And then there are also drawbacks to people being themselves when they're an asshole. And so the whole argument that I make in my book is we need to focus on actual task performance and not just be blinded by these class culture signals, because those actually optimize performance. The book is re-released this summer. If in the meantime you want some reading, I do a LinkedIn newsletter for free about once a week. This one I talk about dark triad traits, and this one I talk about authenticity and is unwritten rules just forcing you to conform. And anyway, y'all just caught me. I mean, I'm very passionate about this in general, but after reading that book, I think it also irritated me of when you look at the timing, like pre-COVID and then like now, to me, it just felt like another one of my peers who has sold out to, okay, you knew that would sell then because people were more pro-equity, and then now that it's not and people are trying to be forced back into the office, now you know it's going to sell now. And as a business owner who has very staunchly not changed my public opinions on anything because I didn't develop a decade of research to then be wishy-washy, it's just really annoying. Anyway, thank you for commenting.